time. You're going before we fall into this whole sectarianism thing. Before we fall into this whole debate, right, of ration and reason and faith and Sufi and Salafi and all the stuff we have today. It kind of cuts through all of that and just gets back to, okay, what is the deen? So it's pure. It's beautiful. No one will sit with you and say, we cannot take from Ibn Masood. He's deep, who's going to say that? So it gets you back to the primary source of our deen, these carriers without whom the Prophet ﷺ couldn't spread the message of Islam. So it gets rid of all that nonsensical debates and just gets us back to what is pure Islam. What is the beauty of Islam? And another benefit of studying the biographies, I'm going to take directly from Ibn Masood, radiallahu an, where it's been reported that he said, none of you should imitate someone in religion. He believes when they believe, and then they disbelieve when they disbelieve. If you must imitate someone, imitate the dead. For the living, it's not safe. For the living person, is not safe from temptation. So Ibn Masood is giving us a powerful lesson here. Someone who's alive, their book is not yet closed. You don't know how they're going to end their life. And so many times, or perhaps even, not so many times, but a handful of times in our life, we'll experience someone we look up to and they totally disappoint us. And for some people, they end up leaving their religion because of that. So he's telling us something very, very wise here, which is imitate the dead because the books are already sealed for them. Jazakallah khair. So Ibn Masood, his full name is Abdullah ibn Masood, ibn Ghafil, ibn Habib, ibn Shamkhi, ibn Far, ibn Makhzoom, ibn Salihat, ibn Kahil, ibn Al-Harith, ibn Taymi, ibn Sa'ad, ibn Hudayl, ibn Mudraka, ibn Ilyas, ibn Mudar, ibn Nizal. Now, the fact that we're able to rattle off all of this, it shows the preservation of the deen and that we don't take our knowledge from unnamed authors. In so many other religions, the information is just coming to you from random unknown scribes. We don't know who they are. But this deen is preserved such that we can rattle off 10 names in his ancestry. And another benefit of this is that we're able to make connections. So within his lineage is Mudraka ibn Ilyas, which is in the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ. So they're distant cousins. They're very distant cousins. Another benefit here is the mentioning of Hudayl in the lineage is important because Hudayl, from the tribe of Hudayl, it's a tribe that's known for their poetry. And that becomes very important for a student who's studying hadith, so that when they see Ibn Masood narrate hadith using poetic language, you know why. Because he comes from this poetic tradition. And also, when he uses a word that can be perhaps misinterpreted, you have to understand he might be using metaphor. Because he's coming from a poetic tradition. And you'll find on the internet Islamophobes attacking Islam, going after hadith of Ibn Masood because they're taking words literally that he's taking metaphorically because they don't appreciate he's from the tribe of Hudayl. That's just a nerd point for a moment, inshallah. Now, Ibn Ishaq rahimahullah tells us that the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr one day went out. And they saw this young boy taking care of milk. Or rather, they saw this young boy taking care of sheep. And they said to this young boy, do you have any milk for us? And he responded, I'm entrusted to take care of this flock. Meaning, I can't just give you the milk they produce. I can't do that. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he said, do you have a sheep that is not yet mated? So they wouldn't be producing milk. And so he said, yes. And he brought the sheep forward. And then the Prophet ﷺ took his blessed hand and wiped the udder of the sheep, and it began to fill. It began to fill up with milk. And then he milked it, and then he drank from it. And when he drank from it, Ibn Masood, radiallahu anh, he brings a very simple cup made from stone so that the Prophet ﷺ could put the milk inside. And so he drank from it, and Abu Bakr drank from it. And then he said, uklus, and the milk retracted, and the sheep went back to the way it was. So Ibn Masood was actually this young man, and he witnessed this miracle of the Prophet ﷺ, and he saw the Prophet ﷺ make dua when he performed this miracle. And so he said to the Prophet ﷺ, teach me something from this speech. He saw something amazing, and he said, teach me, I want to learn. Teach me something from this speech. And then the Prophet ﷺ responded to him saying, may Allah have mercy on you. You are one who will be taught. You are one who will be taught. So the Prophet ﷺ makes a prophecy that you will be a learned person. And we're going to hear about that today, what kind of a person he was. So this was the Prophet ﷺ's first meeting with Ibn Mas'ud. This is Ibn Mas'ud's conversion story. You know when you meet a Muslim who like converted to Islam, you're like, dude, how'd you convert? That's his conversion story. Witnessing this amazing miracle, he accepted Islam, he went home to his family, and soon after they accepted Islam as well. Now, Imam al-Dhahabi, in his book Siyar A'lam Nubla, he does something really, really beautiful with those that he mentions, which is he assigns titles to those people so you can appreciate their ranks. And I want to take about 10 minutes, inshallah, and go through these titles that are given to Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu an. So among the first title he's given is Imam al-Habr. And Imam al-Habr, Habr is the word for ink in Arabic. So it literally means the leader of ink, Imam of ink. But what it really means is one who's a great scholar and possessor of knowledge. And if this was a container of ink and you needed to write something, you would come and dip from that vessel. So he is the vessel from whom we all dip to get knowledge. He is the Imam, he's the scholar of ink. And this term is used for people that have knowledge of Quran, of Hadith, and of Fiqh. And so it shows his knowledge and his status, the fact that he has this title. He's also given the title of Faqih al-Ummah, the jurist of the Ummah, because he was one of the first companions to really delve deep into the legal aspect of Islam and legal thinking. And I want to pause there for a moment. All of you that work, you know, whatever you do for work, it requires technical thinking, it requires understanding, pragmatism. And I want you to think and reflect that we have the Quran, we have the Hadith, we have these books of literature, and we can break them down if we invest the time. Islam is approachable. The same way you put in hundreds and thousands of hours to develop your skills so you can pay your bills, if we exert the same amount of energy, we can untap the gold that is Islam. Ibn Mas'ud invested that time. So he became Faqih al-Ummah. He became the leader, the jurist of the Ummah who could make decisions and who taught the other companions about fiqh. And Ibn Mas'ud, if you're a Hanafi, your knowledge goes directly back to him. Abu Hanifa's teacher is Hamad ibn Abi Sulaiman, and his teacher is Ibrahim al-Nakha'i, and his teacher is Alqamah, and his teacher is Ibn Mas'ud. So one of the big schools and most popular madhabs we have on the planet today, it came as a fruit of Ibn Mas'ud and the teachings that he brought to Iraq. In addition, he's called Al-Makki. He's called Al-Makki to indicate that he's among the early converts to Islam. He says that he was about the 6th or the 7th to accept Islam. And the fact that he's Al-Makki means that he was there at the beginning when it was very hard to be Muslim. It was somewhat easier to be Muslim in Medina, to take your Shahada then. Even easier after the Fath. But he was there in the beginning when it was less than a dozen Muslims. So he's given the title Al-Makki to indicate he is there from the beginning. He's an early companion who is going through persecution. He's living at when it's the hardest time on the planet to be a follower of the Prophet ﷺ. And we're tasting, a smidgen of that today in America with this rise of Islamophobia. We're tasting a smidgen of that now, but he faced it head on. He's also given the title of Al-Muhajir because he made hijrah. And these are titles that are given out not just as labels, but to indicate sacrifice, to indicate commitment to the deen. And think, when you are dead and the angels come to you, what titles are they going to call you by? Because they're noting down right now what we're doing. We know the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. When you gather in the house of Allah to remember Allah, the angels are here writing down your names. They're making notes of you. And so what type of legacy are you building for yourself, for your family? What will the angels call you? So Ibn Mas'ud is called Al-Muhajir because he actually did hijrah 3 times. He did hijrah twice to Abyssinia and then once to Medina. He's also called Al-Badri. Why? Because he participated in Badr. And in the books of hadith and in the books of biographies, those that participated in Badr, they're sectioned off separately. Ibn al-Jawzi, as he goes through these 120 different companions, he has a separate chapter for those that witnessed Badr. He starts with the 10 that are promised Jannah, then he goes to those that witnessed Badr. Why? Because without the victory at Badr, there's no Islam. Without the sacrifice of those 300 men, there's no Islam. So he's given this title Al-Badr. He was also called the Sahaba of the items because he used to carry different things for the Prophet ﷺ. Besides carrying his secrets, he used to carry the Prophet's cushion that he would sit on. He used to carry the siwak. of the Prophet ﷺ, the miswak. He used to carry his shoes. He used to put his shoes on, take his shoes off. He used to carry water for the Prophet ﷺ. He used to hold up a blanket when the Prophet ﷺ took a shower. And think about that first moment they met, when he brought what to the Prophet ﷺ? The first time they met, what did he bring? The stone cup. And that became like a preview of things to come. That he would become this person who has this special bond with the Prophet ﷺ, carrying his items for him, having that great, great honor. So he's called the Sahaba of these items, these multiple items. After that, Imam al-Dhahabi then attributes to him this title of As-Sabiqun al-Awwalun, which is an amazing title. Because he was among the first to accept Islam. He was among the first to recite the Quran publicly. He was among the first to participate in battle. And so he's given this title of As-Sabiqun al-Awwalun, establishing his seniority. He's also given a title here which is very interesting. He's given a title, or rather a label, وَمِن نُجَبَاءِ الْعَالَمِينَ. Nujaba is the plural of the word Najib. Anyone have a friend named Najib? What does Najib mean? Sorry? No, that's Gharib. Don't call him Gharib, he's going to be upset. Najib means noble. And then Alameen, what does Alameen mean? Rabbul Alameen, the worlds. So what is Imam Dhahabi saying here? This is very high praise. He's saying he is minan nujaba al-alameen. He's from among the most noblest of all the worlds. In lay terms, what he's trying to tell you here is that this man is among the most important men in human history. You feel that? In human history. When you think of human history and big figures, you might think of Socrates, you might think of Newton and Einstein. Imam Dhahabi is saying far beyond that. وَمِن نُجَبَاءِ الْعَالَمِينَ. He's one of the greatest human beings in history of mankind. And inshallah by the end we'll appreciate that even deeper. And so he's not just a great companion, he's a distinguished personality. He's one of intellect, of character, of piety, of sacrifice, of understanding of the deen. So he's given this amazing, amazing title. He then reinforces again that he witnessed Badr. He says, Shahida Badr. Why does he mention this again? Because Ibn Masood didn't just like attend Badr, he actively participated. And we know over there is when he got vengeance for the Prophet ﷺ, cutting off the head of the enemy. And so it's enforced here again that he was one that actively participated in the battle of Badr. He's referred to as Al-Hijratain once more because that's a special status that he has. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, you shall have the reward of both hijras, the companions who went to Najashi and those who went to me. So the Prophet called out that those that made hijrah twice, they get double reward. They're of a special status. In addition, he's given this very interesting title, which I need to grab really quickly. Give me a sec. Okay. وَكَانَ يَوْمَ الْيَرْمُوكِ عَلَى النَّفْلِ. On the day of Yarmouk, he was in charge of the nafl. This is a cool point from a military point of view. What does nafl mean? Nafl, like nafl prayer. What does nafl mean? Extra, right? In the battles, there's typically the spoils of war, right? But then on top of the spoils of war is something called a nafl. This is a special part of the spoils of war, a special gift for those that achieve specific tasks that are critical to the victory, like capturing the flag and taking away the whole spirit of the enemy, or capturing a map, or getting some golden piece of information that the Muslims can use otherwise. So those that go above and beyond, or those that penetrate the enemy lines first, like they bust through first, they get on the other side, almost like a game of chess or checkers. Who gets on the other side first? That's the people that get a nafl. So because Ibn Masood was especially skilled in fiqh and understanding, he was given one of the most difficult tasks, which is figure out how to reward that brother for capturing the flag, and that brother for passing the enemy lines first, and that man for stealing the map. You figure out what they deserve. You do that. That's your job. And this shows that he had amazing administrative caliber. I was discussing this with one of my relatives today, and he works in gaming. He used to work for like Activision. And he said, Ibn Masood basically did like a whole gamification. He basically built an algorithm to how to distribute these incentives for the companions. And this is Umar radiallahu anh during his time that this was done. So this battle of Yarmouk, this was a battle against the Byzantines that was led by Khalid ibn Walid when 30,000 Muslims fought against 100,000 Byzantines, and it established the Muslim rule in the Levant as we know it today. So Ibn Masood was given that job because of his knowledge. And then two more titles. Manaqib Ghazira. Manaqib Ghazira means an abundance of merits. An abundance of merits. I tried to think of an English translation for this term, which is very interesting. Manaqib Ghazira. All I could think of was like a polymath. One that was able to achieve a high level of competency in numerous areas. So among the areas that he achieved, a high level of knowledge and success was being an alim, being a scholar. But on top of that, he was a sahaba, a protector of this religion. On top of that, he was a mujahid. He fought in battle. On top of that, he was a faqih. He taught the people the fiqh of the deen. On top of that, he was a qari. He was a reciter. On top of that, he was a zahid. He taught the people how to be ascetic and not attached to the dunya. On top of that, he was imam, a leader of the Muslims, going to Kufa and leading all the Muslims there. And on top of that, he had deep understanding of the Quran. He had deep fahm of the Quran. He used to teach tafsir. So this is who we're talking about here, Ibn Masood. You look in the Jersey community, we have some amazing scholars. And we can identify them, we know who they are, and we can see this one, he's really good in fiqh. This one, mashallah, he's really good in tafsir. This one, his recitation, mashallah, I love to pray behind him. But Ibn Masood is all of that together and more. So he's given this title, Manaqib Ghazira. And so he has all of these titles, all of these achievements, which is amazing coming from a man who is seemingly small, who's being made fun of for his size, but he's so grand in stature. He's so grand in his impact for the ummah. And then lastly, Imam Dhahabi says, Rawa ilman kathir, that he was one who transmitted a great deal of knowledge. So he didn't just acquire knowledge from the Prophet ﷺ, but he worked really hard to share that knowledge. And that's why when we look at his students, as Imam Umar Sulaiman says in his series, he has like 4 pages of students that you can read. Hundreds and hundreds of students that he taught. But Imam Dhahabi, to save space over here, he only names a handful of students. And one thing that's really interesting, and I want to again expose you guys to this if you don't have it already, is that when you look at these classical scholars and the way they write, everything is done with purpose. Everything is done for a meaning. So when he only gives us 8 companions, even though Ibn Masood is at the beginning and he would have taught hundreds of companions, right? Remember, by the time the Prophet ﷺ dies, there's 100,000 companions. He would have touched at least thousands. But Imam al-Dhahabi only chose 8 companions to put in his book. And those companions are Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, Abu Huraira, Ibn Abbas, Ibn Umar, Imran ibn Hussein, Jabir ibn Abdullah, Anas ibn Malik, and Abu Umama. And when you look at these 8, if you know anything about these men, inshallah, you'll know these guys have their own specialty, each one of them. So Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, what is his specialty? I thought I heard it. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, what is his specialty as a Sahaba? Quran. Right? The Prophet ﷺ spoke about his recitation of Quran, how beautiful it was. Where did he learn Quran from? Ibn Masood. And he's a mountain just in that aspect alone, Abu Musa. Abu Huraira, what is he known for? Easy one. Hadith. Where did he get the hadith from? From Ibn Masood radiallahu anhu. Ibn Abbas, what is he known for? Tafsir. Where did he get the knowledge of tafsir from? Ibn Masood radiallahu anhu. Ibn Umar, what is he known for? A little bit harder one. Abdullah ibn Umar. Fiqh. He's known for his fiqh. Where did he get that from? Ibn Masood. Imran ibn Hussein, a lesser known companion, he's known for his zuhud, asceticism. Jabir ibn Abdullah, another companion, known for being very detailed in fiqh. He also got that from Ibn Masood. Anas ibn Malik, he was known as a person who can validate anything in the deen. He just had wide knowledge. And of course, he was a student of Ibn Masood. And then lastly, Abu Umama again was known for his zuhud. So by highlighting these particular people who are giants in and of themselves, it's showing you just how amazing Ibn Masood is. That he is their sole teacher who gave them all these specialties. That's like finding a professor at Harvard who's teaching chemistry and teaching mathematics and teaching history and teaching law and teaching medicine, and he's like the top guy for all. But this, of course, is beyond that, right? This is our deen. This is the knowledge from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so these are the people that are highlighted here. And then another fun point is that these 8 people, they each went off to different regions of the Islamic world. So Ibn Umar, Ibn Abbas, and Anas, they stayed in Hijaz, Makkah, Medina. Others like Abu Musa, they went to Iraq. Others like Imran, they went to Syria, right? And so the knowledge was spreading all over the Muslim world through the teachings of Ibn Masood. So he's certainly a pillar of the Ummah. Is that the right time? Okay, and we're done at what time? Definitely before Isha, but at least gotta leave time for snacks. So 9:30, inshallah? 9:35? Okay, we'll see how it goes, inshallah. So among the top reciters of Quran, which is very important for us to know, his top student in Kufa was Abu Abdurrahman as-Sulami. Abu Abdurrahman as-Sulami was his most student of Quran. And he said, and the reason I bring him up is for this statement, he said, I recited the Quran to Ibn Masood, and he would stop me at every single verse and explain it. So he wasn't just like, the standard teacher just giving you Quran for hifz purposes only. He's giving understanding as well. This is the depth of his knowledge. And of course, Ibn Masood can be found in all the books of hadith. In Bukhari and Muslim, Abu Dawud, you can find Ibn Masood's name over there. Regarding his physical description, Imam al-Dhahabi, again, being a scholar, being very precise, wanting to give you the best source for any piece of data he's giving you, he goes directly to a reliable tabi'i who happens to also be his nephew. So he goes to a narrator of hadith who's known as thiqa, as reliable, but he's also the nephew of Abdullah ibn Masood. So when he's about to describe to you his physical status, you're talking about his nephew, not some random person. So his name was Ubaydullah, and Ubaydullah said that Abdullah ibn Masood was a thin man, short in stature, intensely dark in complexion, and he did not dye his white hair. So this is how he is physically described. And one of his students, Alqamah, said regarding his character that Abdullah ibn Masood, he resembled the Prophet ﷺ in his adab, in his manners, in his way. So as we study this man, it's like we're studying the Prophet ﷺ. And we'll get some more insight into that and why that is, inshallah. And then Hudayfa also said that the closest person in manner to the Prophet ﷺ was Ibn Mas'ud. So this is something that was not disputed. That if you want to basically see the Prophet ﷺ and the way he treated people, the way he acted in his kindness and mercy and love, then just look at Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. He's just like him. Side note for fun, another tabi'i, Qais ibn Abi Hazm, said, I saw Ibn Mas'ud and he was the same complexion of Adam alayhi salam. So if you ever wonder when we make the claim that Adam alayhi salam was dark-skinned, this is why. Because we have these two tabi'i coming together affirming this for us. Just a side note, inshallah. As for Ibn Mas'ud, we know that his legs were thin. And being that title that he has, the companion of the items, he would go to the siwak tree. Now you know why, because you all know the story. He would go to the siwak tree to break off siwak so the Prophet could use it to clean his teeth. So on one of those occasions, he went to go, pick from the tree, and the wind blew his clothes and his thin legs were exposed. And the companions started laughing. They started laughing. And the Prophet asked, why are you laughing? And they said, because of the thinness of his legs. And then he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, by him in whose hand is my soul, they are heavier on the scale than Mount Uhud. So anytime you get a chance to go for Umrah or Hajj, and you're there in Medina, and you visit Uhud, just stare at it for a couple minutes, and just look at the size of Uhud. I mean, even when you're in Masjid al-Nabawi, you can see Uhud in the background, right? It's huge. Just think, Ibn Mas'ud is heavier than that. He's more important than that. He's stronger than that. This is the status that he has. Regarding his personality, Al-Amash, he tells us that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he was latifan wa fatinan. He was gentle and he was clever. And this is really like a goal for us. Talk about goals. He's gentle with the people, very soft, very easygoing, not quick to get anger, but he's also very sharp. So in terms of his demeanor, he's someone you can sit with and you won't feel like scared that he's going to yell at me, he's going to act out, he's going to do something weird. But he's also one who you'll benefit from intellectually. So again, he's combining these two things together. Some people, you have to put up with their bad attitude because you know they have knowledge, right? And some people, they have beautiful character, but not too much to share with you. But Masood, he had both. He was gentle, and he was extremely clever and sharp-witted and perceptive. Imam al-Dhahabi, after mentioning all these people and everything they have to say, then he gives his own personal appraisal, his own personal analysis of Ibn Masood. And he says very simply, he was counted among the most intelligent of the scholars. And this is a man who's writing the biography of thousands of scholars. Thousands. And he says this man is counted among the most intelligent of all the scholars. Meaning this is not debated. So Ibn Masood, we can see here, he's a man that's small in body, but towering in intellect. Towering in intellect. He's deep in his inheritance of what he took from the Prophet ﷺ. He took so much from him. Now the Prophet ﷺ, let's shift over to what the Prophet ﷺ said about him. The Prophet ﷺ, he gave Ibn Masood a couple of nicknames. And it's from the Arab tradition that when you love something, you give it multiple names. Right? We all know this. And so one of the nicknames that the Prophet ﷺ gave to Ibn Masood was Ibn Abd. Ibn Abd. His mother name is Abd. And he's called Ibn Abd, which is very interesting. Because typically, when you're a man and you're strong and powerful and you want to be well known, you want a big, heavy title. You want to be called Abdullah al-Qurashi. Right? You want a big title. You know, like the Kardashians. Oh my gosh, Kardashians. Ooh, what? It's a title now. Doesn't matter which one it is. It's amazing. Oh my gosh. Right? Trump, the last name. Oh my gosh, he's a Trump. It stands out, right? But over here, he's given this title, Ibn Abd, being given a title tied to his mother. And what that shows us is his character. He's a man who is in humility, who's in service, just like a mother who serves her family, who works so hard. That's the type of person he is. So this is something in the tradition, and it shows his character, that he's being attributed to his mother, not his father, and not given some grand title, because he's a man of affection. He's a man of kindness. He's a man of very humble beginnings, starting off as a shepherd, taking care of those sheep, and then becoming this mighty scholar, and yet not being arrogant about it. He's Ibn Abd. Beautiful title. In addition, he's given a title, Abu Abdurrahman. Abu Abdurrahman. What's interesting is that Ibn Masood tells us that when the Prophet ﷺ gave me this title, I didn't have a child. But he's being called the father of Abdurrahman. And so some of the reflections on this is that perhaps he was given this title because he was so merciful. But it just so happens when he finally did have a son, he named him Abdurrahman. So perhaps, Allahu Alam, another prophecy. Umar radiallahu anhu tells us a really beautiful story. That one day, and this is again coming through the lens now of the Prophet ﷺ. He said, Abu Bakr and I were talking with the Prophet ﷺ about the affair of the Muslims. And then the Prophet ﷺ decided to go out for a walk to see how the Muslims were doing. And as he walked, he could hear the recitation of Quran. And as he got closer, it was Abdullah ibn Masood who was reciting the Quran. And so Umar says, when we were close enough to hear him, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever wants to recite the Quran freshly, in the manner it was revealed, he should recite it in the manner of Ibn Abd. And then the Prophet ﷺ saw Ibn Masood making dua after reciting Quran. And he said, ask and you'll be given whatever you ask. So this is something really beautiful that happened. And I want to pause here because, you know, subhanAllah, man, we live in a modern society and the heart sometimes is just so dead. May Allah preserve our hearts. Think about this from a purely emotional point of view. Tap into your heart with me if you can, inshallah. And inshallah we can. Abu Bakr and Umar are there. The Prophet ﷺ sees Ibn Masood making dua. And he says to him, whatever you ask, you're going to be given it. The immediate reaction of Umar is, I can't wait to see Ibn Masood tomorrow and tell him what the Prophet ﷺ said. He wants to share that good news with his brother. But as Umar, if you know anything about Umar and Abu Bakr, as Umar would soon find out, by the time he got to Ibn Masood, who already told him? Abu Bakr. And Umar said, I never tried to do something good except that Abu Bakr beat me to it. And what are they racing towards? They're not racing towards buying the video stock. They're not racing towards something random. They're racing towards sharing good news with their brother. That's it. So race to give good news to your brothers and sisters. Don't only share the stuff that's depressing us on TikTok and Instagram. Don't only do that. Yes, we have to be aware, but also share good news. Motivate one another. So he was rushing to share this beautiful news, but Abu Bakr had beaten him to it. Ibn Masood radiallahu anhu has been reported, and Imam al-Dhahabi again records this, that he was the finest of people in clothing. He wore white, and he was the most pleasant in scent. So I tried to wear white tonight, and you don't want to know how much itar I sprayed on myself, but I'm trying my best, inshallah. By the way, do you guys know what name is on that box over there? That little foldable picnic table. Did you guys see the name on the box when you came in? It says Abdullah Masood. I don't know what's going on there. But that's just really interesting. It says from Abdullah Masood. May Allah reward the brother who donated that to the masjid. You can't make these things up. Alhamdulillah. Allahu Akbar. So Ibn Masood, he had his physical appearance that was, small, and he's a very simple man. He's not a rich man, but he carried himself with dignity. He always made himself presentable in front of the people. And it's from the honor of the knowledge that he's trying to give that he took on that persona. I'll paraphrase really quickly for the sake of time, but the first time that Ibn Masood saw the Prophet ﷺ, the first interaction is with the sheep, but the first time he saw the Prophet ﷺ, he was in Mecca, and he witnessed the Prophet ﷺ coming with a woman and a young boy. And he says, I saw them walk around the Kaaba 7 times. And I saw them go behind the maqam of Ibrahim and pray 2 rak'ah. So basically the Prophet ﷺ is doing what? He's performing Umrah. And who is he with, by the way? Who is the woman and the young boy? Who is the woman and the young boy? Early Makkah. Early Makkah. Come on, scroll back in time. Khadija radiallahu an, perfect. And who's the young boy? Ali radiallahu an. Beautiful, mashallah. So Ibn Masood narrates this later on, and now all of a sudden we have the fiqh of Umrah. But that was the first time that we saw him. So sometimes you go in the fiqh books and you're like, okay, Ibn Masood is telling us the fiqh of Umrah, but you don't realize that's the first time he actually put his eyes, saw the Prophet ﷺ, and he saw that beautiful young family. And so Ibn Masood radiallahu anhu, he said that he was the 6th to become Muslim. And he said there was no one else on the face of the earth that was Muslim except the 6 of us. That's how small the community was. Ibn Masood radiallahu anhu, he tells us, and now we're going to shift into some quotes from him for the last few minutes, inshallah. Ibn Masood radiallahu anhu, he tells us, I learned 70 surahs from the Prophet ﷺ, and no one disputes this. The first time I read this quote, I just read it like any other quote. I'm like, all right, whatever. He studied 70 surahs, we know that. But the last part is really interesting. He said, and no one disputes this. Why do you think he said that? What's the benefit of him saying, and no one disputes this? You could have just said, I studied 70 surahs with the Prophet. But he added, and no one disputed this. What does Allah say in the Quran about the people of the book? Where's the brother who led the salah? He's Hafiz, right? The people of the book didn't do what? They didn't dispute until after knowledge came to them. When you study Judaism and Christianity, they are in dispute about everything. How many books belong in the Bible? What is the nature of Jesus? They dispute about everything. But this ummah, we don't have any disputes when it comes to this Quran. And I tell people in da'wah all the time, the non-Muslims, I don't care if you talk to a Sunni, a Shia, a Qadiani, a Nation of Islam, a 5%er, it don't matter. It's the same exact Quran. So Ibn Masood is highlighting to us here, this Quran has no disputes. No one is arguing that the Quran starts with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim and finishing with Min al-Jinnati wan-Nas. So it's really a really amazing point that we can take from that. And so 70 here can be taken literally, or it could be taken in the Arab tradition, meaning he studied the entire Quran with the Prophet ﷺ. Allahu alam. But we know the number 70 is often used for any large number. So Allahu alam. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed in Surah Al-An'am, do not expel those who call upon their Lord morning and evening seeking His face. وَلَا تَطْرُدِ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُم. Do not kick out or get rid of those who are calling upon their Lord morning and evening. The Asbab al-Nuzul, the context of this ayah being revealed is that the Quraysh say something very dirty to the Prophet ﷺ. They look at him and they look at his followers. These poor people, these homeless people, these weak people, these people who don't have high status like they do. And he says to, and they say to him, ﷺ, why don't you get rid of these lowlifes and then we'll talk to you? Like, we don't want to talk to you when you're keeping that kind of company, you know? And then Allah revealed this ayah. We're not going to do that. We're not going to get rid of people who do what? Who call upon their Lord morning and evening. They're much more important than you people. So it came in defense of Ibn Masood and the other early companions that were being looked down upon by the society. Ibn Masood radiallahu an, as Imam al-Dhahabi mentions, he was the first to recite the Quran publicly. And this is why he has that title, As-Sabiqun al-Awwalun. He was the first person to go out publicly and recite the Quran. Despite the fact the companions tried to tell him, don't do it. You're going to get in trouble. And he said, no one's going to stop me from doing this. I don't care what. Nothing can stop me unless Allah wants it to not happen. He went out, he recited, and they beat him. And he kept reciting, and they kept beating him until he fell unconscious. And so he has that status, As-Sabiqun al-Awwalun, because of that commitment. He was also the first to memorize the Quran by heart. The first Hafiz was Ibn Masood radiallahu an. Ibn Masood, coming to his character, he was one who he just had this beautiful personality. And now we're going to be, inshallah, less technical and more just into his personality. There was an interesting incident that happened when he was in Kufa, where he saw a bunch of young boys drinking alcohol. And there was a young man amongst them that was singing. And he went up to the young man, and the man was playing a guitar also. So he's playing and he's singing. And Ibn Masood radiallahu an, having that prophetic approach, he walks up to the man who's singing and he says, you have a beautiful voice. If only you used it to recite the Quran. And this man became one of the top teachers of Quran after Ibn Masood. And he became a muhaddith. He could have gone different ways. He could have taken the guitar and just smashed it over his head and be like, man, what's wrong with you? This is embarrassing. The Prophet ﷺ hasn't even been dead for 100 years. Look what you're doing. Seriously? But no, he approached with this amazing hikmah and wisdom. And this is a lesson for us with young people. Motivate them rather than chastise them. Elevate them. Show them they have an opportunity to do something better with the talents they're given. There's an imam in Australia, Almir Colin. If you're into Islamic finances, check him out. And he said, and this is just his opinion, he says it's very interesting that Muslims spend so much time day trading. And he doesn't view it as something that we should do for this purpose. He says the amount of energy and intellect you have to put in to be a day trader, you could cure cancer. Because it's not easy to do day trading. You got to calculate 15 million variables at once to make $10,000 a day, whatever they do. So sometimes people have talents that need to be redirected. They need to be redirected. And he saw this person and redirected them in a different way. So they became a teacher of Quran and a muhaddith on top of that. One time he was walking by a house and he heard some beautiful recitation of Quran. And he said, this is the kind of recitation that Allah loves. The one that's done at night without any type of showing off. And so he highlighted this. And again, this is something that I really hope and pray we all become Muslims that reflect on beautiful moments and highlight them. Highlight the beauty you see in the ummah. Highlight the good things so we can encourage one another. Don't just be negative and criticizing all the time. It's so easy to criticize. But Ibn Masood is walking around, seeing beautiful things happening, and he's highlighting it. And he's saying, this is it. This person gets it. In terms of his worship, one of the scholars, they say that I never saw a scholar who observed fasting less than Abdullah ibn Masood. So this is very interesting. So Abdullah ibn Masood, one of his students, Zir, he said that he used to fast Mondays and Thursdays. But from the scholarly point of view, that's considered like low. That's like you're not meeting the minimum criteria to be considered a scholar. If you're fasting Mondays, Thursdays, it's supposed to be more than that. So one of the people, they said to him, I never saw a scholar who observed fasting less than Abdullah. And so he was asked one time, how come you don't fast more? You're this big scholar. And he said, because of my size, it weakens my body, and then I'm not able to do extra salah. So this is a man who has his priorities in order. He understands his body, he understands his limitations, and he knows what he's trying to achieve. He wants to enjoy his salah, so he only fasts as much as his body can handle it. Ibn Masood was among the companions who they would speak about themselves in ways that you would think they didn't like themselves. He said, I hope that I won't be resurrected on the Day of Judgment. It's a very strange statement, right? You're a companion. You're a certified Badr, you're a certified Muhajir, you're a certified Faqih al-Ummah, you're a certified Qari, you're a certified Hafiz. And he's like, I hope on the Day of Judgment that I would just be like dust. Why? Because of the fear. Because he looks at his sins not as something small, but he looks at it, as the scholars say, as who is he making these mistakes in front of? In front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he made this statement, and many companions, in their fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in their humility, they would say things like this. And he also said, I wish that Allah would forgive me of my sins and that no one would ever know me. So again, this is the humility that Ibn Masood, he used to have about himself. And then he used to say to the people, and perhaps you've heard these quotes before, but you didn't know it was attributed to him. He said, if you knew me, what I know about myself, you would throw dust at my head. Again, this amazing humility that he carries himself with. One time, he was walking and there was like a group of people following him. You know, like after like a major convention and the sheikh is done, everyone rushes up to ask the sheikh questions, right? So he's walking down the streets and a bunch of people start following him. He's like, what are you guys doing? I said, well, we wanted to hang out with you. He said, go back. For it is humility for the follower and temptation for the followed. It's better for your humility that you don't do this, and it's a temptation for me if you keep doing it. So stop. In terms of his zuhud, he has some really beautiful statements. Like you should just like print these out, put them on like your fridge. He said, do not allow yourself to be a corpse at night and a housefly during the day. You get it? Do not allow yourself to be a corpse at night and a housefly during the day. Meaning that you're relentless during the day, going everywhere, trying to get stuff done, chasing dunya matters. And then when the night is here, you're just passed out. Done. May Allah forgive us and grant us strength to understand what he's trying to tell us. The nighttime is for remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The nighttime is for reciting Quran like he mentioned before. He said, by Allah, by whom there's no other deity but him, there's nothing on earth that is more in need of a prison than the tongue. You know, when you read these things, you're like, man, was Ibn Masood Sufi? Right? I know I'm thinking it, right? But again, the whole point of going back to these biographies, you see, like, this is not Sufism or anything. This is just the real Islam. This is what the Prophet ﷺ taught us to do. This is how he taught us to think, taught us to live. And again, Ibn Masood, being one who is in touch with his heart, he used to say something to his companions that was so beautiful. He said to them, you people, you guys in the Jama'ah, you drive away sadness from my heart. Isn't that beautiful? You drive away sadness from my heart. When I'm with you, I just feel good. I'm so glad you're here. If you have good friends in your life, tell them something similar to this. Like, I need you in my life. I don't know about you, but I need you. Don't go nowhere. Don't move to Dallas. Stay here. Ibn Masood, he was also one who encouraged us to not procrastinate. And of course, he was not a procrastinator. You cannot be a procrastinator and achieve this much in your life. So he said, I hate to see a man who is idle, doing nothing either for his worldly life or his hereafter. Just sitting there not accomplishing anything. So really taking advantage of the life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. Ibn Masood, he also taught us how to recognize and think about the shaitan as a sworn enemy. Oftentimes, because we live in a secular society, because we're so lost in the dunya, we forget the shaitan is an open enemy and a clear enemy. Adu mubin, as Allah tells us in the Quran. And Ibn Masood gave us a way to really think about this. He said, Radiallahu an, shaitan, he goes to people when they're in a state of dhikr. to try and pull them away. But he fails. So instead, he goes to people that are talking about dunya matters, worldly matters, instigates fights between them so as to distract the people of dhikr so that they can stop doing what they're doing. This is really important. So if you're trying to study the deen and you have a good circle of friends, alhamdulillah, the shaitan can't get to you. So what is he going to do? He's going to try to go somewhere else and do something else, right? And inspire an Abu Lahab to rise up amongst you. Because that's what Abu Lahab was. When the Prophet ﷺ was doing da'wah in Makkah, trying to get to the people, Abu Lahab was literally trolling him, following him around, being like, don't trust that man, he cuts off ties. That's my nephew, I know. Don't listen to him. That's what the shaitan does. He will try to send people to disperse a khair from happening. So be smart. When you see something good happening in the community, and then all of a sudden someone comes out of nowhere and tries to throw a wrench in it, realize the shaitan is working through that person. This is real. He didn't just show up here randomly. Shaitan's like, these guys are trying to build a community here, let's mess them up. So beware of the shaitan. He's a predator that's constantly on the prowl. Ibn Masood, he also encouraged us to experience and enjoy our salah. He said, as long as you're in salah, you are knocking on the door of Al-Malik. And one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Malik, the sovereign or the king. He said, as long as you're in salah, you're knocking on the door of Al-Malik. And whoever knocks long enough will have it opened. So what is he telling us to do? When you do your salah, don't rush it. Allah is here. He's listening to you. You're close to him. Keep knocking. Lengthen the sajda. Lengthen the ruku. Lengthen the qiyam. And then whatever you ask for, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you. He's Al-Fatah. He will open up these doors for you. His advice just gets more and more like intense and comprehensive. He says something here we have to break down together, and inshallah we'll close soon. He said, I'll read the whole thing and then we'll go back and break it down, because this is like, it's like beyond, again, remember he's from the tribe that was poetic. So when he speaks from his own words, he says things in such beautiful ways. He said, be fountains of knowledge, lanterns of guidance, cushions to lean on in homes, be nightlights of renewed hearts and worn out clothes, known among the residents of heaven and unknown among the residents of earth. He's saying a lot here. Let's go slowly. He said, number one, be a fountain of knowledge. As we know, water is purity. A fountain is something you love to look at and love to go to. He said, be a fountain of knowledge wherever you are. Be that source of knowledge. Other scholars, they said about Ibn Masood that, there's some companions who they're like a pond, others are like a lake, others are like a river you can benefit from. Ibn Masood is like the whole ocean. Everyone can benefit from Ibn Masood. So he says to us, be fountains of knowledge. Then he says, be lanterns of guidance. What is a lantern? That which gives light. We're living in a time of jahiliyyah. We're living in a time of darkness. We need to understand we're carrying this light of Islam, this beauty of Islam, the beauty of the Quran, the beauty of the Prophet ﷺ. Be a lantern of guidance in your part of the world, wherever you are. And then he says, be a cushion to lean on in your home. Which is really beautiful. What's a cushion? A cushion, you guys, some of you wish you had cushions right now, right? He said, be a cushion in your home for your family. Be one whom they feel comfort with. You know, like those chairs that are super comfy, you just can't get out of them? He's telling you, be like that with your family. The approachability, the kindness, the softness. So it's not just about going out there and being a beacon and, being a source of light, but in your home, just be soft and cushy, and be approachable. And then he said, be nightlights. And I got small kids at home, so I got nightlights all over the house, right? But a nightlight, he's telling you here, like, wake up in the night and do your salah. Then there's like a light emanating from your house, and the angels are like, hey, what's going on over here? And they write your names down, right? Be a nightlight. What a beautiful image. And then, speaking to his zuhud and trying to get us to not be attached to this world, he said, your clothes should be worn out. Like, don't be so obsessed with this dunya. And now we know, sisters, I'm sure you know, but like, a fast fashion. Like, it's very interesting the world we live in now, where you're supposed to buy new clothes every year. H&M sells the clothes so that they're pretty much, done after a year, and then you switch it off, right? And in due time, perhaps your clothing will just be on renewal at Amazon. And every month you just get a new batch of clothes and you return the old clothes. And it goes to the third world. Don't count it out. The future is that you don't own anything. Everything is rented and leased. So he said, have worn out clothes. And by doing this, you become known by the residents of heaven, meaning the malaika, the angels, and not being focused on being known by the residents of earth. He said, when you fast, grease your lips. Why did he say that? When you fast, grease your lips. So people don't know, right? You walk around with chapped lips, oh, he's fasting. Oh, mashallah. No, he said, grease them. Don't let people know. Hide your good deeds. Make it a private matter. Enjoy the private worship that only you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will know. And then the final point, inshallah, and then we will summarize, is regarding the heart. And again, this is, pre-Sufism and all these things that we think about now. Look at what he says about the heart. He says, the hearts have a period of desire and enthusiasm. And they have a period of fatigue and disinterest. So desire and enthusiasm, fatigue, and basically boredom. So utilize the period of desire and enthusiasm and leave them upon their fatigue and disinterest. So he's teaching us here that your heart has a spiritual rhythm. Isn't that amazing? He's teaching you that your heart has a spiritual rhythm. There's times when you're feeling up and there's times when you're feeling down. And he's saying, be self-aware. So when you're feeling up, you can really push yourself to do things. And when your heart is tired, you need a break, then just take a break. It's okay. So he's basically warning us about this thing that we call burnout. And you can have burnout in spirituality. The shaitan comes to you, memorize 30 pages of Quran tonight. That's one juz, man. Do it. You can do it. And then you do maybe 2-3 pages and then you don't touch the Quran again for 60 days because you're burnt out, right? So he's telling you here, don't overload yourself spiritually because this can lead to resentment. And basically when your heart is primed and ready, then lean in. And when it's feeling tired, then just lean back and give itself its time. And we know from the deen, because this is just echoing the deen, that the Prophet ﷺ, he told us that there are certain times that are blessed. So take advantage of those blessed times, right? Early morning, he said this ummah is blessed in the early morning. These 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, the best days of the year. So when these windows of spiritual opportunity open up, take advantage of them. We have this group, peer pressure right now to do more in these 10 days. We look on YouTube at Makkah Live, we see all the Hujjaj there. We're motivated. Take advantage. And then, after Eid, you can eat yourself to death or whatever you want to do, right? But take advantage of these windows of opportunity because your heart right now is already motivated to do more. And so he gives us that guidance. So in summary, Ibn Masood radiallahu an, he taught us to prioritize the Quran. He said, whoever loves the Quran, he loves Allah and His Messenger. He taught us to seek knowledge. He said that knowledge is not by narrating much, but by fearing Allah. So it's not about reading through a book and just finishing it. It's about attaining the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said that if you have a beauty, to make your voice beautiful when you recite the Quran. He literally encouraged us to do this. He was one who, as we can see, he valued truth more than comfort. And I know right now our Imam, I didn't know before, but I saw the YouTube on Wednesday when the lawyer was here. He's going through a test right now. May Allah make it easy for him. But inshallah, our Imam here is at the rank of Ibn Masood, where he values the truth rather than just comfort. And may Allah make it easy for him and grant him better. Ibn Masood taught us that to have humility, you can be great in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if you're small in stature. Him being compared to the Mount of Uhud. He taught us about sincerity, that we should love worshipping Allah in private. He taught us not to argue. He said a time will come when people will argue the Quran, but their hearts are empty. Just lost in meaningless debate, meaningless rhetoric, asking just silly questions. And Allah speaks against this in the Quran about Bani Israel in Surah Al-Baqarah. They asked too many questions, so things became difficult for them. So don't argue, rather seek completeness of the heart. And he used to care for people's akhirah. There was a bunch of people who were about to be punished, and he stopped them and he said, no, these are people who the Prophet ﷺ, he forgave at Fath al-Makkah. Don't you dare punish a people who the Prophet forgave. So he was thinking always about the people, and he had that deep love and concern. And he encouraged people to prefer unity over disunity. When the compilation of the Quran was happening, he had an opinion which was a minority opinion. He recognized that after making a mistake, and he apologized to Uthman radiallahu an. It takes a big man to apologize when you make a mistake. He was arguing with Uthman in the beginning of the compilation, and then he pulled back and said, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. So he valued unity over division, even though he felt he had the strongest opinion, because he was there with the Prophet ﷺ in Makkah. And lastly, he taught us that when we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should do so deeply and not blindly. He said, a little done with understanding and certainty is better than much done blindly. So this is just, the tip of the iceberg for what we can learn from Ibn Masood. Ibn Masood radiallahu an, when he passed away, the companions asked, do you think that we have anyone left like him? Do you think that we have anyone who's left amongst us like him? And the other one said, how can you say that? He was given permission to enter the Prophet's house at any time he wanted. He was the one companion who the Prophet said, when you come to my house, you don't have to knock. Just walk right in. He was the one who used to walk with the Prophet alone for days and days. He was the companion there. And so when he passed away, they mourned his death because they knew that no one had that knowledge. No one had that closeness, that access to the Prophet like him. So yes, how can there be anyone else like him? So for these reasons, I encourage you all, inshallah, and I encourage myself to take the time to learn more about Ibn Masood. As I told you, I'm only giving you 4 or 5 pages of 23 from here. Over here, it's pretty small, only about 10 pages. But inshallah ta'ala, by taking the time to study the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, we can eradicate a lot of the division that we have. And I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us people that are united. By studying the companions, we can see the wealth of knowledge that we have in this deen. And inshallah, we can be motivated to become more serious students of knowledge. And through studying them, inshallah ta'ala, as we mentioned in the beginning, we learn from people who we can emulate. Because while at times we might be intimidated by the seerah, that's the Prophet ﷺ, Ibn Masood was a regular man just like you and me. Except he had an amazing level of dedication, which inshallah ta'ala, if we scratch a little bit of that, we would accomplish so much more individually and as an ummah. I ask Allah to grant us tawfiq to follow the companions, to follow their footsteps, and to be like them, inshallah. Barakallahu feek. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Yes, sir. The question was, did he participate at the time of the fitna? I don't know. To be honest. I know there's only a handful of individuals that didn't fall to the fitna, like Abdullah ibn Mubarak, like Hassan al-Basri. I don't know if he's on that list or not. Allahu alam. But I know those two for sure did not participate. And a bunch of companions had left Medina because they were too sad when the Prophet left. So that's another way they avoided the fitna. But Ibn Masood is a good question. I don't know. Allahu alam. Yeah, so the brother asked about the prioritization that Ibn Mas'ud had. I think, again, for me, I'm very passionate about this particular study because it cuts through so much of the dogma and over engineering that we do sometimes as an ummah. And to be honest with you guys, one thing that happened recently in our history was one of the most tragic things, which is that in Makkah, it wasn't when the black stone was stolen, it's when we had 4 salah going on at the same time. When the Hanafis prayed by themselves and the Shafis prayed by themselves and so on and so forth. So the Ummah has faced tremendous trials and fallen so far into dogma and sectarianism that I think this is what can break us out of that, is getting back to these studies. To know that it is part of Islam to have this level of zuhud. It's not a Sufi thing. To be zahid is to be a Muslim. To have your heart attached to the akhirah more than the dunya. And then prioritization, I think that sometimes we feel like the knowledge is inaccessible. When you go on YouTube and you try to find the tafsir of a surah, you're only going to find 3 or 4 people. There's this fear about talking about the Quran, that it's it's here. No, we have to engage the Quran and make mistakes and pray that Allah forgives us. So I think prioritization, it's a very complex question. It's the fear of engagement that we have to break out of. Get your children to read Riyadh al-Salihin on a normal basis. and to read the 40 hadith of Imam Nawawi on a normal basis. Start to crack open these books and read them, inshallah ta'ala. And get attached to the primary sources, and then you'll develop a love. But I do know that, you know, the priorities will come as soon as you start to scratch the surface and you realize, man, this stuff is pretty accessible. Because we pretty much copy the Christians and the Jews, where we're like, well, you have to go to the Imam to answer the question. You know, 90% of your deen you should be able to answer on your own. You should be able to handle on your own. The technical matters, yeah, talk to the Imam. But your day-to-day, the deen is not complicated. Allah did not give us a deen that requires a PhD. It just requires love, commitment, desire to learn, and it's there for us, inshallah ta'ala. So I think that, I hope that answers the question, but that's how I see that, inshallah ta'ala. Sisters, any questions or comments? Yes, sir. Abdullah. Abdullah. Yeah. Abdullah, and then he had the other two nicknames, ibn Abd, and then Abu Abdurrahman. Those are the names we know of, inshallah. Anything else? Alrighty. Barakallahu feek. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.